Right. So what are we trying to do here? What we're trying to do is basically go from a situation where we're having too many calls and yet not having enough progress with our opportunities, because many reasons, many factors, but typically because we aren't focusing on the right prospects, or we're not adding value to the prospect. Also, 90%, 9 out of 10 opportunities enter the pipeline, and yet the close ratio is very low, where we're doing all the work while our prospects barely respond to our call and emails. And we're basically jumping through a never-ending series of hoops. This is, whenever we do what the customer asks us to do, they come up with something else that they need to see to buy, and this never ends. And we have no idea when and if the prospect is actually going to buy. And the problem with this is that you will have put so much work into this deal, and possibly neglecting other activities like prospecting and so on, that you feel like you can't pull out of this deal, and you need to continue doing the things that they keep asking from you. And chances are you might not close the deal because you're coming across as desperate, and you don't have many opportunities that you're working on. So we're going to go from that situation to a possibility where we're working on prospects where we have a mutually agreed evaluation plan, where both you and the prospect are working together towards the same end. And there's going to be specific timelines and responsibilities for us and the prospect. And because they can visualize this process, and when they're actually going to get the value after they sign the contract with us, this will become a source of motivation for them to move forward. We won't have to chase them or push them or use pushy tactics, and you'll know exactly when the deal is going to close, because you will have agreed on that from the beginning. And basically, by doing this, by doing this transformation, the agreed plan transformation, you will know at the very beginning of the sales process how much work, time you will need to invest into this deal to actually get it closed, which will put you in a position to decide whether this is a deal that you want to work on or not. And also, because of you have this plan in place, you and the prospect will be motivated to go ahead with the purchase without you having to push so much. Right, and I wanted to start by this I find this very funny anyway. It's a comic by Dilbert called Tormenting the Vendor, and it basically describes a buying process where prospects or buyers are kind of bullying a vendor into bidding for their product, for their bid, because they control the economic future of the vendor, right? And they tell them, yeah, of course, you have to participate, you have to participate in this process, but we don't worry, we will measure your your performance with quantifiable data and whatnot. And then they pull out a ring, and then they make the guy jump through the ring and hoops, and on top of that, the measurement is how long is it going to take for the vendor to jump through the hoops. And on top of that, they say, well, your competitor did it and they gave us nice t-shirts, right? So I find this quite funny, but it's actually not funny at all when you're in sales, and this happens quite often. And this is what I mean by avoid a never-ending series of hoops. Yeah, it's basically understanding when you are participating in a process where they're trying to source a solution such as yours, and you understand, okay, so what's the effort? What is it that we're going to need to be doing? What's the criteria? And when I will actually get this deal closed if we do all these things, and agree on that with the prospect. Yeah? So you're basically at the same level. And it's not like, okay, so you're the vendor, you need to do everything we do, and that gets worse as the sales process, goes further and forward. Right. So A little bit about sales process. Yeah, so I don't know what your sales process specifically looks like, but it tends to look like something like this. So maybe the prospect comes in, and then you need to do a demo, and then you do a demo, or we do a demo, and we have no idea what the prospect wants to see, and then actually, we realize that we need to do a discovery call after that, and then maybe we didn't get everything we needed, and then we need to do a second discovery call, and then because the prospect didn't actually understood the value of the demo, we need to do a second demo, and then after that we need to do a POC, and then we need to do maybe another demo, because there's this other guy in the company that needs to see the demo. They haven't seen it before, and in the meantime we're doing all this work, and our prospect is actually sleeping on the phone, or at the other side of the Zoom meeting, and we're doing all the work for them. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to prevent this situation, and how we actually prevent this situation is by implementing a plan. And how do we implement the plan, and what that looks like is what I'm going to tell you in a minute. So when we implement a plan, so let me tell you first what happens when we don't implement a plan. So when we don't implement a plan, as I said before, we probably work on most of the opportunities that we receive. So we have pipeline A, where we have, initially 10 opportunities out of, so these are the stages of the sales cycle. So stage 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever they call them. Some people call them discovery, solutions, evaluation, and then whatever that is. So let's say stage 1, it's 10 opportunities. Then out of that, 9 go to the next stage. Out of that, 8 go to the third stage, and only 1 closes. And then we have pipeline B, where we have the existing 10 initial opportunities. And out of that, because we implement the plan, and we implement the concepts in the plan, we realize that actually, only 6 are going to progress, because the other aren't a good fit for us, for whatever reason. They're not engaged, or they're not getting back to us, or we couldn't agree on that plan initially. And then third stage, 5 get through, and you close 3. So by implementing these plan concepts, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute, we're going to increase the close ratio that we have. We're going to come across as more professional, because we follow up in certain ways, and we behave in certain ways, and we're being perceived as an equal to our prospect. We're going to have more control of the sales cycle, because we will know, okay, so I need to do all of this work, and then the ROI or the deal is going to be quite little. So do I actually want to do this or not? We're going to avoid wasting time on time wasters, and people who just maybe they're just trying to research, or they're not ready to buy right now. And then by doing this, you'll get an ROI out of your efforts, which is basically your quota and the satisfaction of your prospect. Now, what are the components of this plan that I'm talking about? So the plan has 2 components. One of them is going to be the executive summary, and the other is going to be a timeline. The executive summary, I'm going to deep dive into that in a second, but it's basically a summary of the conversation that you have with the prospect and you send after your meeting with them. And the timeline is a visual representation of the activities that you and the prospect will have to do together, not only to buy from you to execute the purchase, but further down the line to get the value out of your solution. Yeah, so the focus here is showing the prospect when they're going to get the ROI as a consequence of solving the problems that are stopping them from achieving whatever objective they have. Yeah, so where we're saying the plan has two components, which is the executive summary plus the timeline. Let's talk a little bit about the summary email. So if you remember the previous steps, there are 4 components in our qualification. So one is step 3, which is align solution. Yeah. And in align solution, what we do is uncover certain components. Yeah, so we uncover on one hand the objectives that they're trying to achieve, the problems that are stopping them from achieving those, and then the solutions that you provide. Yeah, so that's what we uncovered on the first step of the 4-step qualification checklist that we've been working on over the last few weeks. The second step is access decision makers. Yeah, so when we access decision makers, we basically establish that we know who they are, we've shown them what we do, and they are okay with, they're on board with the process. Yeah. And then the third step would be uncover value that we've talked about. And uncover value has 2 components, which is personal value and also business value. Yeah. So value for the individual, what's in it for them, and then the value or ROI for the business. And then finally, solution action decision makers, uncover value. Right, exactly. So the fourth one would be the plan. Yeah, the plan, which is what I've been talking to you about in a second ago. So the summary email is nothing but a summary. It basically in the summary email you need to write down all of these components that you've uncovered in your conversation with the prospect. So it's going to look like something like this. Yeah. So dear prospect, Mr. X, thank you for your time, blah, blah, blah. In our previous conversations, we've been talking about some objectives and problems and solutions that you've been having. And then you mentioned that we have the best potential solution to your problem. Yeah. And then we also discussed that you are the only decision maker that we need to talk to. And also we mentioned that this has a value for the business of that much, and also has a value for you of whatever value it is. It could be, you also mentioned that by executing this process and buying our solution, you will get a promotion, or whatever it is that you discuss with them. And then we also discussed that these are the next steps that we need to take over the next few weeks to help you make an informed decision about working with us and get the value out of the solution further down the line. Yeah. So basically, what we're trying to do with this summary is motivate the prospect to move forward with the offering by summarizing everything that they need to see. So effectively, this will be like a proposal that you will have been working with the prospect throughout the sales cycle. So by the time that you iterate on the summary with your prospect, this will kind of act as a proposal, because all of the components, as you can see, is kind of the business case for them to buy your solution and get the value and so on. And the idea with this summary is that you send it to the prospect after your conversation, and that they'll confirm that in writing back to you. Could be as much as okay or whatever it is. But by them agreeing with this, it drives accountability on both parts. Basically, if they don't even get back to your summary, this is a red flag, because you actually don't know if this is important enough for them. And if it's not important enough for them to even reply an email at the beginning of the cycle, then why would you invest time in doing this? So it helps drive that accountability on both parts by demanding that they get back to you in writing before continuing with the process. And it also helps accelerate the sales cycle, because when you're writing the summary, you will realize that maybe, well, actually, I don't know. I don't know this information, I don't know the personal value so much. And, I'm not so sure whether he's the decision maker or who is the decision maker and how we can access those guys. And then these will help you add questions on your summary email to help you iterate or in written to get that information without having so many meetings with the prospect. Yeah. So for instance, just before you send out the summary, what you can do is add in red to that summary some questions along this line. Yeah. So I'm actually not sure whether you are the decision maker. Can you confirm that that's the case? And so by going through this process of summarizing the conversation that you're having with that you've had with the prospect as per the value selling methodology, you will 100% realize that there are things that you don't know because you forgot to ask, or whatever the reason that is. And so this exercise helps you identify what you don't know as per the qualification methodology that we've been working on, and B, maybe ask those questions in writing to hopefully get an answer in writing and progress the deal much quicker. Or at least if they don't get back to you, this is an item that you need to address in the following conversation. So you can give the prospect that option. And it would be great if you could get back to my questions in red. If you can't, don't worry, we can address that in the next conversation scheduled on this day, right? So that's how it accelerates the sales cycle. And it also helps avoid misunderstandings, because sometimes we've been selling the solution for so long that we kind of know or believe we know the answers. And sometimes we make assumptions, and assumptions are dangerous. And so by summarizing this email, we're giving the prospect an opportunity to correct anything that we might have got wrong in that process, in that discovery call. And also psychologically, it helps us being perceived as a professional, as a business partner, and not just a salesperson. So that's the summary email. The second component in the plan is the timeline, right? So the timeline is quite a simple concept. Yeah. So in a sales process, there are certain steps that you need to take to close the deal, certain activities that you need to conduct to close the deal. For instance, discovery call, solutions call, POC, whatever that may be. But there's also certain activities that the prospect will have to take initially to also evaluate the solution. Yeah, things like forming a decision team, getting a consensus, getting the budget approved, or going through legal, going through IT, whatever that may be. And also, once they buy, there's going to be certain steps that you're going to need to take to deliver value, right? So for simplification, if we say that it's going to take 1 month, let's imagine that each one of these steps is a month. Yeah, so this is December, this is Jan, and this is June. Yeah. And so let's say, for purpose of simplification, that your sales cycle is 1 month. Yeah. And then here is when they become clients. Yeah. And then here is where they get, horrible diamond there, where they get the ROI. Yeah. Which is business value and personal value, right? And so there's going to be certain steps that you need to complete, as I mentioned, which could be, discovery, solutions calls, POC, whatever that may be. And so these, in black, are, steps that you take. But also, there's going to be steps that your prospects, as I said before, will need to take in this process. And once they buy, there's going to be certain steps that you will have to take to deliver the value of the solution. Yeah, and this could be, I don't know, workshops. It could be, I don't know, whatever it is. Yeah, and I don't know, you take users, you onboard users, you give them training, access to licenses, whatever those things are, they're here. And so you prospect and you, but this is service, and this is you, sales activities. Yeah. And so by doing this effectively, when we present a plan like this to a prospect, we're giving them the opportunity to correct if our interpretation of these steps is correct. So we say, typically, this is what our clients need to go through when they buy from us. And then they'll correct you. They'll say, well, actually, we need to do more than this. We need to, I don't know, we need your firstborn child. We need, we need a lot of things to make that decision. And we don't even have a consensus criteria achieved. And we won't be able to do that for 2-3 months. So you start to get a picture of, do I actually want to do this? This is going to be way too much work, and there's no clarity, and they don't have that clarity, and it looks like it's going to take too long for them to do that. So you can challenge them on that. Also, and more importantly, you help them see what are the activities that you will deliver to help them make that informed decision. And this is a great way to communicate to them, what things are going to look like over that month, and what are the things that you're going to do to show them the value, to help them make an informed decision about buying from you. But more importantly, they will be able to visualize the value that they will get. And so this will motivate the prospects to go forward with the purchase, to complete the steps in blue, because they know that once they've made that purchase, it will take them 6 months to get the ROI that they are looking for. Yeah, the business value that they're looking for. So the more you work on this plan, the more motivated they will be, because they'll be closer to the finishing line. And it also compels them to take action without you having to use any closing tactics or discounts or anything like that. You're not putting any pressure on them. You're basically, if you realize that they're not doing the things that they should be doing. They don't turn up to the solutions call, or they don't give you that document that you need to prepare the POC or whatever that may be. You bring them back to the plan, and you make them realize, you remind them that, Mr. Prospect, you said that you wanted this value and you solve these problems by this date, because you're wasting, all this money, because you're wasting well, it should be euros, you guys, you're wasting all this money, or you're not realizing all these ROI. Does it not matter? What are the consequences of not doing this, right? So on one hand, they see what they lose, and on the other hand, they see what they'll win if they work with you on this process. So it compels them to take action, as I said before, without you having to use any pushy tactics. But there is one caveat here. If you don't know, if the objective that they're trying to achieve is not really important for them or well defined, if it's not specific, if they don't know what they want, if they don't know by when they want it, if there's no metrics to achieve that, if there's no ROI, clear ROI on what they'll get, and if they don't know, all of this stuff that we saw before, objectives, problems, solutions, access to decision maker, value, if these components aren't uncovered, then chances are this won't be effective. So you, in order to use this tool effectively as a tool to compel them to move forward, you really need to understand and go through the qualification criteria that we mentioned before.